My name is Hampley III. I'm a Chief Master Sergeant in the United States Air Force, and this is part 3 of my series called Stripes, Bullet Writing and Career Management. So in this series, in this lesson, we're going to be talking about the actual bullet mechanics. And so in the first couple parts, just to give you a quick overview, in the first part, it was like the preparation part. And this is where I talked about the enlisted evaluation system and kind of what supervisors should know as well as subordinates. You should understand the enlisted evaluation system because this is the process or the system that identifies you for the potential for promotion as well as other career opportunities. And so you want to know that. You want to know what the enlisted force structure says about you in 362618. You want to know what the ACA says, what your supervisor may be looking for out of you as an airman. And then you want to also know what's required and what's on the 910 and 911 912 based on your rank. And so you want to kind of know what your rank, also within your tier. And that's why it's important to always look at the enlisted force structure. And so there has been no EPR that I've written or looked at or reviewed that I didn't have the little brown book sitting right next to me, because I want to know what's required of me at my current rank as well as what the next rank or tier also says. And so that's really important. And so within that preparation, I also talked about the career map. And so this is one thing that a lot of airmen don't do, and this is something I really didn't do until I was a senior NCO, to be honest. And when I was coming up, all I did was what my bosses asked, and I hoped that that was enough. And so I say, boss, these are all the things you asked me to do. Hopefully this would be a great EPR. But then when I became a senior NCO, it was like, okay, maybe I should be mapping this a little bit better and have set out some goals for myself. You know, yes, I do need to accomplish the things that my supervisor asked me for mission accomplishment, but in doing that, I can also set some goals for myself as well. And so I began to set up some goals and have some career mapping going. And so then I had that preparation piece. So that was in part 1. So then in part 2, what I began to talk about was the word picture. And so this is the performance piece. And this is where I began to use competence, initiative, and dependability, and those 3 will give me the opportunity to influence people. And so our programs, processes, and different things at different levels. And so that's all important. And so that was 4 parts in that word picture. But throughout my career, all I ever did was to leave my office better than what I found it, help everybody. That's the 4 rules. That's what I've used from staff sergeant to chief master sergeant. And so in this one, this is where we begin to really break down how to write a bullet. This is the documentation phase. So before I go any further, I had it in my hand. I wanted just to show you just a picture of the book that I wrote called Stripes. And so this is the book that we're using, and all the information that I'm going over is in this book. And so this book just covers the whole process, everything that I talked about, as well as a 2,000 word verb list that I have used since 2006. And so when I started out in 2006, it's actually a 3,000 word verb list, and it was this Excel spreadsheet. I can't remember where I found it, but it's been gold since then. I've always used it. I use it to this day. But in the book, I only use 2,000 words because that's all I can fit in there. So if you want to get with me, just send me an email and I'll send you the full 3,000 word verb list free of charge, no charging. All right, so let's get into the first one. So now we're talking about the bullet writing, and we want to go into this first piece, which is like the bullet detail. And so in the bullet detail, there's going to be 4 things that I want to go over. And the first one is accuracy. And you want to make sure that you're being truthful about whatever bullet that you write. You do not want to lie or speed. Sometimes you write a bullet to where it's like it's not quite a lie, but it's not quite the truth. And you want to stay clear out of that area. You want it to make sure it's the truth. Because oftentimes we'll write a bullet and say we did something. And I saw a situation where someone said they worked with this high-ranking official. Didn't know, like this was like maybe a couple years ago, not knowing that they would be sitting on a board to be vectored 2 years later, and that person is sitting there on that board and says, you know what, I never worked with that person. I don't remember working with that person at all. So what do you think that goes along? What happens to that person's credibility once that senior official says that person didn't work on that project? Now they have an EPR bullet saying that they did. That's going to be in question. So every bullet that they have after that is going to be in question. So there's no need to lie, just don't do it. So you also want to be brief. There's no need to write this long story. You don't have to write an essay or anything, a paragraph. Just get to the point, use the fewest words possible to get your point across. Number 3, you also want to be specific. And so in being specific, I definitely don't like, as a chief, I don't like the plus sign. I wish I could just take like a bazooka and just every time I see that plus sign, just boom, boom, just shoot them all off. I don't understand why we just can't say it's 53%. Or just round down and say it's 50 or it's 55 or something, as opposed to you and 50 plus. To me, it's a space filler, and I don't like to see it. That's just Hamp Lee personal. Some people love it and they'll throw it all over the place because they want to get to the edge, and that plus, you know, get them right to the edge and they're good to go. But for me, I'm taking it out. So you want to be specific as you can. So while as you're being accurate and you're being brief, you want to be very specific and detailed. You don't want to have a bullet that's really generic. And I'm like, I don't know what you did. You know, it's too generic. Get me right in the weeds, in the details, without kind of convoluting it where you can't understand it. So I want to still be able to understand it, but be very specific. You can just have one bullet that just kind of captures something that's real brief, that's real accurate, and that's real specific. And then after that, I want to show perspective. And so showing perspective, I know there's some other bullet styles that you show different management levels, but I like to show perspective because what I want to do is I want to show how a person or an airman is well-rounded while they're at that rank or across their career. I want to show that they have breadth of knowledge, that they've done different jobs. It's kind of like when you're walking into like a carnival and you go into the room of mirrors, and so in one you're tall and thin, and the next mirror, you know, you're short and stumpy, then your face is really wide, then your face is really flat. I want to show different perspectives. So when you think about that, you look on the EPR and they may have a section that has like 8 different items that they're looking for, but then there's only 6 lines. So then if I map it out well, then I say, okay, this year I'm only going to focus on 4. And then the next year I'm going to work on the next 4. And then in my third EPR, if I'm still at that rank when I'm going up for my next promotion, what have you, then I'm going to kind of get a mix and kind of hit them all up so that this EPR shows I'm well-rounded at my rank and at my skill level, so that my skills show, or that my EPR shows that I have these skills, these well-rounded skills and abilities. And so that's what I'm going for. I want to show perspective in different areas that shows growth, that shows over the course of from one EPR to the next EPR to the next EPR, everyone builds on the other, kind of like a step stool or going up the steps. Each one shows that I'm at a different level. I'm not going to write the same thing I had in the last EPR, but I want to show growth. So when someone is reviewing my EPR, they'll know, like, okay, they were at this level. Okay, they should be running the shop. They were the NCOIC assistant last year. Next year they should be running it. Go to the next job. Yep, they're running it if the opportunity comes available. Or if you look at someone that may be going through the ranks in the like a professional organization. Okay, they may have just been helping out. Now they're on a committee lead, and then after that they're in executive council. Now they're running for vice president. You know, they're just kind of going up and up and up. So I want to show that progression, and that's kind of the perspective that I want to show, that I have a well-rounded balance to my career. And so that's what's important. Okay, so in number 2, in the bullet format, now in the bullet format, going over the first one is the AIR, is the accomplishment, impact, and result. And a lot of people struggle with that. And this was, even for me, I struggled with this for a lot of years, because every time I looked at the impact and result, I'm like, that looks like 2 impacts or it's 2 results. And I don't understand how to kind of differentiate between the 2. They both look the same to me. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to explain it the best I can on how I kind of came to understand the impact and result. So when you look at this bullet, let's go back to it. Now, he led the homeless shelter, or he or she led the homeless shelter food drive. So in the impact is the immediate benefit of this person's actions. And so the immediate benefit is that they collected 8,000 in food and then also 1,000 pounds of clothing. That's the immediate impact. And so the result is the final outcome of your accomplishment. That's the last thing, the last accomplishment. So here, the last accomplishment was that I lifted spirits during economic hardships. And so that's how I describe the accomplishment, impact, and result. But I also like to use other bullet formats as well. So that, to me, there's different ways to kind of list a bullet in your accomplishment. So let me talk about 2 others that I use. The next one I use is the what, the how, and the impact. This is probably my bread and butter, and this is the one that I will probably use more than any other format that I may show you, because I want to show how an airman, even myself, how I did something. Because sometimes the how shows like the level of detail and precision or the expertise that I used or the coordination, what have you, to be able to get something done. And that may show how I'm ready for the next rank or the next opportunity. So that I always go to that one first. So that's what normally my go-to. So let's go over this one. So in the what, first responder to a snake bite poison emergency. How did he solve this? Now he initiated first care until the paramedics arrived. What's the impact? Save a child's life. So that may be pretty cut and dry, but that's normally my big go-to. So the next one is the lead in, the what, and the impact. So I do believe lead ins are important for EPRs, but I don't think it should be every line. And I've seen some bullets where like a person's EPR, where every bullet is a lead in something, lead in something. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. I may use it for maybe the unit commander, final evaluator, maybe something that's a very strong impact or bullet or some type of accomplishment, but maybe two at the most, maybe three. Three definitely is pushing it for me, but I'll at least have one lead in on my EPR just to talk about something that describes my performance, and I'll get into the descriptive bullets in a couple videos from now. So when we look at this, you have the alternate unit fitness program manager. That is really wordy, so you'll see this bullet again. We'll work on this one a little bit. So drafted two squadron policy letters and kept the squadron fit to fight. So this one, like I said, you'll see this one again, but we'll go over that. We'll leave it for now. We'll just hang it, just put it on the hanger, and we'll come back and dry it out later. So let's go into the bullet mechanics. In the bullet mechanics, when you see this bullet right here, if you look at the orange, it's really small. In the single dash, every bullet starts with a single dash and has a space right after. You can see that with the little yellow orangish color right there. And then we have a semicolon. And so the semicolon is always going to be that transition between the accomplishment and impact. Some people like to use double dashes or ellipses in that area. Semicolon, that's the Air Force standard. This is what we all use. You see some of the same things in the PDG and the tongue and quill. Semicolon. And so now you see the semicolon being used here between the accomplishment and the impact. And then you have the double dash. And so the double dash has like it's designating that this is the final result, or this is where the final impact is about to begin, or whatever you're going to list last. That's where it is, where there's result, impact, whatever, what have you. That final information is going to be there. Again, a lot of people I've seen a certain state, it seems like this one state has like, it seems like several bases in this one state uses like ellipsis. And I'm like, no, double dash. And sometimes when you don't use like that Air Force standard across the board, then some board members could look at the bullet negatively, like, well, this isn't even the format that's customary that we all use. Why are you using ellipsis to show the final result? Double dash. So if that's you, double dash. If you have a boss and chiefs and commanders that want to use ellipsis, please speak with them. You can pull out the tongue and quill and the PDG to kind of go over it. Let's use what's commonly used across the Air Force. So let's use the double dash. And as you can see here, I have the double dash, then it goes into prepped, the 2000 Airmen combat ready. So then you have the apostrophe. So this is the apostrophe, not to show like possession, but this is the save space. And this is the primary reason or use of this tool here is to save space. So as you can see, the prepped, maybe if I have that E there, if I take it out and put an apostrophe there, boom, it's going to fit on the line. Everything's good to go. So I use these very sparingly. I will, if I have a 1206, I'll flood and I'll clutter the 1206 with the apostrophes. But if I don't on the EPR, I use these very sparingly. And so I want to have a very uniform, very clean EPR. I'm very thoughtful about the EPR and kind of how it's formatted. And so I want to use a EPR that's from top to bottom, that's formatted very well. I treat it just like if you're writing an essay. You don't just put any type of formatting in there just because you can. I want to make sure everything is uniform and very clean. And so I make sure I watch out for that. So then you have the ellipsis. And so the ellipsis will begin to omit a word. And this is where you see like the 2000 Airmen combat ready. You can add several words in there, but I can just get right to the point and just kind of skip over those. Again, it can be used as a space saver, but then I also use those very sparingly as well. Again, being uniform. And then you have the forward slash. So in the forward slash, this may be able in place of conjunction when you instead of saying but and. So here, if you look at this bullet, you have like organized weekly first sergeant briefings, and then you could be like slash instead of like and right start briefing. So it's two things, and then like and then in the next in the impact you have the or how it's like revised slides and organized briefs. Now when you use these, you want to make sure that everything is of one subject. Don't talk about apples and then oranges. A lot of people do that, especially when you come down like the training and volunteer bullets. They'll have like two totally different things. Have apples, oranges, and then the final result is apples. I'm like, well, wait a minute. What about this orange? You know, this is out of place. Make sure everything is streamlined. You don't have to fit everything together. Now, if you're going to talk about two different things, find the common denominator that connects those. So if you're going to write the result, make sure the result connects with both things that you talk about. Don't just go, 1 + 1 = 3, because that's what it sounds like. It doesn't add up. It doesn't equal up together. So make sure that if you're going to use the slash or anything that you put in the bullet, make sure everything kind of flows together. All right. So number 4, you want to be consistent. And so being consistent, like I said before, this is using like you treat the form as one standard document like an essay. So typically what we'll do is we'll spell, like I have the example here for Chief Master Sergeant, we'll spell it Chief Master Sergeant, however we can to make sure it fits on a line. Just like we have different spellings, you'll have like saved here, you'll spell out saved, then you'll have SAV''D, then you'll have SVD. You'll use it several different ways if it'll fit. But for me, I try to use the same spelling throughout the document. I want to be uniform. If I use the spelling one place, then it makes me think because I want to use that same spelling other places. So then I'll correct myself because there's some times when I'm not uniform and I was trying to make a word fit in one bullet, but then in the next bullet I spelled the word out. And I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't look right. Let me make sure I kind of go a little uniform. Now that may seem for some people like, man, that's a little bit too much. I'm just going to do each bullet separately, but it's going to make but I'm telling you, it's going to make your EPR look very clean, and it looks like you put some thought into it, and it makes it look very uniform. And so I'm always going for that uniform look. So that's just talking about being consistent. So the next one is don't vomit. Now, not vomiting. This is a lot of people, like I talked about before, apples and oranges. They will put in their bullet, they'll put apples, oranges, raspberries, pomegranates, pears, peaches, and then put, say $2 million. And they'll try to throw everything in there but the kitchen sink. If they can, they'll stuff the kitchen sink in there too. There's no reason to do that, because when you do those things, I can't even understand what you're trying to say. Because somebody do that. They'll put all those things in there, all these different fruits, and then at the end, $2 million. I'm like, I don't even know how you save $2 million. So then I just scratch the bullet out because I don't understand it. So instead, just be really cautious. You can put like one really strong bullet. That's why if you're planning it right, and you're doing the career mapping, and then you begin to, walk everything out, you're showing good competence, initiative, dependability, and influence, those bullets will come where you can use one per line. And each one is strong and it stands on its own merit, and you don't have to try to stuff a bunch of stuff in there, even if you have extra stuff. When I was a first sergeant and I was going up for chief, man, I had a ton of different things I could use. So I sat back and I said, okay, of all the things that I did this year, what's the strongest? And not only that, not only what's the strongest, but what haven't I already used? Remember, I was talking about perspective. So I want to show other bullets. I don't want to say that, like for first sergeants, we have Operation, Warm Heart. I had Operation Warm Heart in like 2 other EPRs. And so I ran the Operation Warm Heart for 2015. It wasn't even in my EPR. Even though I ran it, I wasn't in charge, but that day, the commander, the wing commander and the command chief showed up, and the person running it was running a little bit behind. I was like, man, those 2 are here, let's go. And so I kind of started everything off, kicked it off, but I didn't, even though you say, hey, I ran it, but even though I didn't want to put it on my EPR because it was on my last 2 EPRs. So I'm like, let me show something a little bit different. So I'm giving a different perspective. So now I can sit back and I say, look at all these bullets I have. Which ones do I want to choose from? Because I want to show something different. I want to show, like when I was a first sergeant, that's when I was going up for chief. I came out of my career field. Well, I took the diamond off. And so I was testing, my second time testing for chief and now I'm back in my career field. But I wanted my EPR to show that each EPR EPR had something a little bit different, showing that I was well-rounded first sergeant, taking care of airmen, taking care of business, making sure my commander was taken care of, my commander didn't get fired. So that's the goal. Commander not get fired, airmen are taken care of. Good to go, get promoted. So that was my focus. So I wanted to make sure that I was kind of using the right EPR bullets. So that's why you want to sit back, kind of map everything out, so then you can kind of pick and choose the different things you can put in there, as opposed to just slam jamming everything into one bullet. So don't vomit all over it. All right, here we have here number 6, minimize acronyms and abbreviations. And so this one came from our group commander during that same period. Group commander did not like for EPRs to have a lot of abbreviation and acronyms. And at the time, if I could abbreviate it and I would. Now, I didn't like the ampersand sign, but I'm telling you, if I can abbreviate every word in every bullet, I would do that. So this was a big challenge for me initially, but when that EPR finished, man, that EPR, those EPR, I had like 2 of them like that. I mean, they were super solid because they were written so clean. I mean, it was almost like life changing. The light bulb comes out. It's that moment like, oh my goodness, mind blown. It was awesome. And so I really want to challenge you, if that's you, because that was me, to really seek to minimize the abbreviations and the acronyms that you have. I guarantee you your EPR will be solid, because I didn't think my EPR would. Believe me, I was a doubter of that, but I'm gonna follow orders. But when I finished that EPR was tight, and it was awesome. So I absolutely, encourage others to minimize acronyms and abbreviations. You won't regret it, I'm telling you. All right, and now in number 7, you want to avoid fluff. Just like you see cotton candy, there's no reason to kind of fluff things up, because you're not going to fool any board. Anybody that's reviewing it will be able to tell that that's fluff. You're thinking like, okay, I'm gonna trick the board. We've been around many years. You're talking about combined, some of us may have 60 years of service while we're looking at a promotion board. We'll see right through it. So don't try to use any type of fluff. Just get right to the bare bones. I'm a person, I don't like fluff. I just like to kind of boom, boom, boom. I just want to hit to the EPR. I want to hit this bullet, boom, get it strong, get to the next one, boom, get to the next one. That's how I want to that's how I want to roll through my bullets. I don't want any type of fluff, or that, like we saw the alternate unit fitness program manager. That's too long. That looks like fluff. Looks like you don't have anything else to say. So I want to cut that down and really pack it in without making, I want to pack it in, but making sure that I can still understand what it says. So don't use any type of fluff. Number 8, white space. Now with white space, you want to be very cautious, because you want to make sure in using white space that you're saying the right story. Now I'll try to get to the edge too. I'm an edge person. If I can, I'm gonna try to keep working it, tweaking it, using different words, the right words, to try to make a word fit. I don't try to use the wrong word. Sometimes we'll just try to find any word that'll help us reach to the edge. Sometimes I'll let one letter go, one space, maybe 2, not more than that. But sometimes when you have like half the bullet is not filled, or half that line's not filled, you're missing lines, that tells a story as well. So you want to make sure that you're using white space and you're telling the right story in what you're doing. Make sure that you're using it wisely. Number 9, you also want to watch for errors. It's the same thing. It's one document. I want it clean. I want it uniform. I want to take the time to make sure that this EPR is not or at least it's error-free. The spellings are all together. And this comes down to, I'll just throw in a little bit of bonus. This is making sure that an EPR is ready, or ready long before closeout. I am a person that likes to hold for closeout. I just want to wait for signatures, hold for signatures, closeout comes, boom. So I will ask for EPRs months in advance, because I want to take the time to review them, make sure I have the right focus on them. I can give each EPR the time that it deserves, because EPRs are very important to each of our careers, because mostly what's on our EPRs is going to determine what's going to be on our DD-214. Now there's some other stuff we got to do as well, but the EPR has a lot of weight, and so I want to make sure I give each EPR the proper time. And so I want them early so I can make sure that I have the time with each one of them, and I don't want to say that I'm the manager that's always holding things over past closeout months after, and then someone's career can be affected. I don't want to affect anyone's career, and most of the time when we're looking at something that's close, once you're getting close to closeout, we may only be working on 1 or 2 EPR bullets anyway. So there's no real reason for us not to have things done on time and early. So give me that opportunity to, as a leader, as a supervisor or superintendent, to be able to look at your EPR and really take my time with it so that I don't feel rushed because I'm trying to meet a deadline and then I can look over. I don't want to, there's other people, there are like gatekeepers and gates that kind of also look at EPR reports, but I want to make sure that I can capture those as well. All right, so number 10, you want to be able to support your claims. So in supporting your claims, across the Air Force, we probably save, like, if you combine all of our EPRs together, we probably save $500 trillion in 1 year. So when you talk about saving $4 or $5 million, don't be surprised when somebody comes and asks you to prove, how did you save that? Show me. So you better be ready. If you're going to save $5 million, then you better be ready to show someone how you save $5 million. And so I've been challenged on EPR. Someone said, "Hey, how did you quite save $3 million?" Well, ma'am, sir, ma'am, let me show you. And then I kind of walked them down. I said, this is how I saved the money. And that way, that brings credibility. Because then if I say I saved $2 million and I can't prove how, they're like, take the bullet out. Because if you can't explain it in a casual conversation about how you prove that, then, or at least give me, if you have a formula, show me the formula. If you can't do that, then I'm not gonna carry any weight into that bullet. And so I want to make sure everything is accurate, and I'm gonna make sure that I have my proof before I say that I saved the world and I got this $50 million savings. I want to make sure I can show it. Even when you talk about percentages, when I'm talking about percentages, I want to have a process for being able to explain that to someone very clearly. So, and number 11, we'll go into finding the impact. So in finding the impact or developing the impact, this is where a lot of airmen struggle the most. And so in this process, one of the things that I found in my own career was that I did not ask these 6 questions: the who, what, when, where, why, and how. And so we as the Air Force, we save statistics on almost everything. And if you do a little bit of homework, a little bit of investigating, you can find an answer or a way to be able to discover the different impacts and how to have a strong impact. And so sometimes, I'll give just one example, is that if you have an EPR that says 100% accountable, or program 100%, instead of saying 100%, okay, what was it like before you got there? What was it like after? That's always my go-to. So then if you get to a unit, and so maybe in a SAF, they had maybe 7 of the 10 items that were fixed. So now you showed up, and then in the next SAF, you fixed 2 more, so now it's 9 out of 10. So just say, I'm just doing public math, just say that's a 20% increase. So instead of saying like 90% accountable, or even if you get it to 100%, so that's a 30%. So then instead of saying like 100% accountable, you could say, yeah, raise productivity or 30%. That sounds a whole lot different than saying 100% accountable. Because when I see 100% accountable as a chief, to me, all that says is you did your job. That's what you're supposed to do. It's supposed to be 100%. Show me something different. But then when you can show the improvement that you've made, good to go. So now I can begin to see what you've done. I can, it's almost, I can quantify that. So that's where I kind of work off of. And then also asking questions with process and product improvement. And that's why, going back to in part 2 in the word picture, that's why initiative was so important. Because when I begin to use process and product improvement, begin to find things, that's how I get great bullets. Because now I'm improving my processes, my programs. I'm leaving my office better than when I found it. And with me, along with me, I have like a boatload of different items and bullets and accomplishments that I can use and show a great impact. So let's get into this. So let's get into this first example. So the first example, you have here the contractor buys 13 vehicles for the unit. They cost $200,000, and then 45 of them were replaced. 45% of the vehicles were replaced, and now he just says the vehicles are a lot faster now. So when you look at this, there's 3 different types of bullets that you can choose from. And so all I use these for is, most people know how to write a bullet, and so they just kind of struggle with the impact most. So I'm just going to use, I just have these just as an example. Some people like the word brokered, some people like procured, and you have fiscal giant. Now, I didn't talk about this before, but you don't have to be fancy with the words that you use. Just use a strong action verb that gets to the point. If I have to open up a dictionary to understand what you wrote, it's the wrong word. And I've seen this 1,000 times on a lot of, like, we sit on murder boards. I do that as well. That may be something that you should do as well. So we have murder boards for all of our 1206s that go up. And so one of the things we do, we have our winners, and then we'll sit down. We use that as an opportunity for career development and mentoring. So it's not just me as a chief and other senior CEOs sitting in there. I want the junior enlisted airmen to be in there as well. Sometimes they'll give some comments, and sometimes they don't. But at least they're sitting back to hear what our thought process may be for a certain bullet and why we do certain things and how we do them. So maybe that's something that you can incorporate within your unit as well. Just say, hey, we're going to have a murder board. Come in. As long as the airmen that we're writing on don't take it personally. What we're doing, we're just trying to help your bullets to be stronger. I'm a person, I like domination. I'm just speaking my personal thought. I want to win, and I want to win all the time. And so I want to make sure that the bullets that we write are the strongest possible, that are accurate. I'm not going to do any speeding, but I want to make sure we take the time to develop our bullets to the best of our ability. So each of those words, going back to the example here, each of those examples could be used. You have even a lead in about physical giant. Maybe I want to say that this person is physical giant based on the perspective. But in each of these, you can see I get in that $200,000, and I talk about the vehicles that's going in there. So then when you go back into the accomplishment part, if I use the impact piece or I use the how, then you see those two bullets there as well. So in A, this is more of the impact. 45, what's the immediate benefit of buying these vehicles? 45% of the fleet was modernized. And then if I want to use the how, then I can say I shaped a new purchase method, especially on the rank. Then if I'm using shaping a new purchase method, then my impact should have something to do with that purchase method and the speed in which it's now being used. And then if I use the fleet vehicles, then I can use the impact could be something about those vehicles. You see how I tied that in? I'm not going to go back and say that, okay, he brokered 13 squadron tactical vehicles worth 200,000, shaped new purchase method, a squadron morale's at all-time high. That doesn't fit. So I want to make sure everything kind of flows together as you see that. Maybe even some people want to say, Airman Snuffy did his thing with this. Now, I've never seen a bullet like that, but you never know what somebody will write. Now, in developing the impact, let's go over this. So now they said that the vehicles were a lot faster now, but then maybe because we track everything, maybe someone tracks like how fast a response vehicle may be. So I may go to the person that tracks that information. Maybe there's several people. And so now I find out, let's go back to this example. There's within 30 days for the old vehicles, there's 100 responses with a response time of 7 minutes each within 30 days. And then the newer vehicles have another 100 responses with a response time of 5 minutes each within 30 days. And so looking at this, now which impact do I want to say? Do I want to say 100% of antiquated vehicles gone? Some people like the word antiquated. That word may not be necessary. Maybe I enhance squadron vehicle operations. Some people want to say that. Or I improve response time by 28%. Now, 28%, now that's the math that's there. So I will probably use that one because it shows I quantify the improvement or how I did that. Now, going back, I don't have this example here, but if I use a new purchase method, maybe I want to use a bullet that says, improve, squadron processing or purchase processing by 90% or 58% or something else like that. Cut it down from 100 days to 5 days. Maybe I want to show, if I show 100 days to 5 days, sometimes some people use it like that, but then I will still try to use a number that I can quickly process. Because if I see 100 days, and then, the like greater than, less than sign in 5 days, I'm kind of like, my mind's like, okay, what is that? So kind of make it real plain for me so I can understand it. So that may be the way that I can develop this bullet. Let's go into another one. Example 2. I told you you'll see this bullet again. Let's go into it. So now, how can we improve this bullet? Because we quantify, we track everything, and PT stats are tracked. So if I'm the alternate and I don't have that information, I can talk to the primary. So I talk to the primary, so we're checking all the excellence scores and then the failures before and after appointment. So when I check them, now on top of me checking this information, I also started a training regimen for all of our airmen as well. And so as a result, I find out that fitness failures decreased by 40%, and then airmen receiving excellence scores increased by 3%. So even though 3% may seem like a small number, it's still an improvement, and I would still put it in my EPR because it does show I quantified it. It may not be big, but it's still some type of improvement. So I won't say that I crushed any type of metric. Sometimes I see that, you'll see this is something extra, but you'll see like crushed Air Force standard by 3%. You don't crush anything at 3%. You lower things, and it's reduced or lowered, not crushed. Crushed should be like 20% or something else like that. 50, crushed it by 75%. That's crushing it. Just throwing it out there. Okay, so let's get back into the example. So now, as you can see, the EPR bullet, I've changed it a little bit. So now we have alternate UFPM. I closed that out. So now, if this is a junior enlisted airman, I want to say that this person is drafting commander policy letters. That's important. A junior enlisted airman drafting policy letters? Yes. / establish new training regimen. And this bullet, by the way, fits on the line. So what's the impact of this? Raised unit excellent airmen by 3% and lowered fails by 40%. So if you see here, I put 3% first and then put 40% last. 40% is the bigger number, so that's what people are going to see last. That's what I want to use last. Now let's go into another one. So in this example, you have tobacco cessation champion, and then he just briefed or / promoted the goal of 20% reduction in tobacco use Air Force wide. When I look at that bullet, it says you did your job. You met the goal. You met the standard. So what we're all about in the Air Force is trying to exceed the standard. So how can I, as a supervisor, help my airmen exceed the standard? I'm like, wait a minute. I think there's a way that we can capture some more information out of this. So I go and talk to my OIC. I say, sir, ma'am, do you mind if we kind of track the stats for everybody for about a year, kind of just do a survey probably every quarter, see if anybody has quit smoking, and if they have, how much money they save. The OIC says sure, but make sure everyone knows it's voluntary and non-attribution. Like, okay, cool, got it. So then I talk to Airman Snuffy. Airman Snuffy, make sure this year and kind of give them the guidelines. And so now when I come back, let's go into what we found. So we keep the survey going. So what we found is that he created curriculum. He taught every tobacco user on the base, 500 people, 58% of them quit smoking, and then combined, they saved over $5,000 in 1 year. You know good and well, there's a lot of information that can be pulled out of all that what he said. So I can use any one of these different styles. I can use the accomplishment, impact, result. I can use the what, how, impact, the lead in, the what, and the impact. I can use any of these, but I may choose the what, how, and the impact for this one. So let's go into what I wrote. So I said that he taught the tobacco cessation classes, so I kind of keep that the same. Now, as an airman, I wanted to say that he created curriculum for 500 people. So that's something that most airmen may not do. And so then in the impact, we reduced base smoking by 58%, which is true, and then saved airmen $5,000 a year in yearly costs. And so that was one way that we may be able to kind of capture that information to kind of get that great bullet and pull that information out. So we had this opportunity to kind of talk about the bullet, and I hope that this lesson, this part kind of helped you understand and kind of get your mind thinking about kind of how you structure bullets and how you kind of go through them. I also have in my book, I have some other examples as well. I won't go through them through this book, but that's the completion on talking about the bullets and how we structure them. So in the next series, we're going to talk about the duty description, and we're going to get into the writing the EPR line by line. So I'm going to go over the 910 and 911. We'll just kind of break those down. So I don't know how I'll break those down at this point. Haven't built that yet. But if you have any questions or comments about this video or even about my other previous videos, just hit me up on the comments. You can shoot me an email on the global if you like. If you want that 3,000 word verb list, just hit me up and I'll gladly send it to you. And until the next time, may God bless you abundantly. God bless.